Hello, everyone. Thank you all so very much for joining us. This is another show, another episode of not only Truckers Delight, but also of Comrades. So before we get started, let's do some introductions. Let's start with my man to the very bottom.
Hey, I'm Roy from sunny Southern California. I've been a lifelong trekker since I can remember. It's pretty much all that existed. So I'm just ready to talk about some Star Trek. I can't believe I get to do this. Wow.
And to my left.
William Danger Newman here. Been a Trekker since the original series started airing. So practically since the age of the dinosaurs, I guess.
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all. Not at all. Well, I guess I'm the newbie. Once again, my name is Jermaine. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Before we get started, we're going to watch the intro to Truckers Delight, and then we're going to do a short recap of the episode that we're covering in today's episode. Again, it's dealing with race and specifically discrimination. Not so much race, but specifically discrimination. So let's get started.
What's up, Trekkies? It's your boy Will Wofford here with Trekkers Delight, a Star Trek-inspired podcast. Before we get started, we're going to give away $100, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel where we will announce the lucky winner every single week. Now, welcome to Trekkers Delight.
This is a recap of Deep Space Nine's Past Tense, Part 1. A transporter incident from the Defiant's cloaking device sends Sisko, Bashir, and Dax to 2024 just days before the Bell riots, which is a turning point in Earth's history. Finding themselves in San Francisco, Sisko and Bashir realize they are separated from Dax. Caught by the police without ID, the two are placed in a sanctuary district, a section of the city composed of homeless, jobless, poverty-stricken citizens. Sisko realizes he and Bashir have landed just days before the infamous Bell riot scheduled to unfold within the very sanctuary district where the two have become prisoners. History states the event begins with district residents taking hostages at the processing center. It ends with armed forces killing hundreds of innocent people in an attempt to secure the situation as it turns into a rally. A man named Gabriel Bell plays a pivotal part in the incident by sacrificing himself to ensure the safety of the hostages. Sisko tells Bashir the incident will cause public outrage of the nation's condition and a major step forward to solving Earth's social problems. Jadzia is coincidentally found by a modern-day robber baron who takes pity on her, himself a reformed man of the people working in communications. With his assistance, she is able to gain access and using her skills is able to get money. Through her storyline, we are treated to the juxtaposition of life experienced by those with means. Later, Bashir is confronted by a ghost, BC. A fight leads Gabriel Bell to intervene. BC kills him in the brawl, thus altering the future. Back on the Defiant, they realize they have been caught in a temporal bubble, but they also realize they must have changed the timeline because they are cut off from Earth, and Alpha Centauri is now under Romulan control. With Bell dead, Sisko assumes his identity, realizes that it is imperative he and Bashir make sure history unfolds as it should. When BC takes the hostages, it is clear Sisko plans to allow his death for the sake of the timeline. Gentlemen, let me just first say this. This was 1996. I was still in college, and this was one of those episodes where, you're just like, oh, it's just going to be like one of those episodes that you're going to forget, the way that it started off. By the
Sure.
end, I was like, oh my God. Like, it was like, oh my God. And it was a two-parter because, like back then, a two-part episode, you knew it was going to be good, right?
Right.
And it did not fail. It did not fail. So before we start talking about the comrades part of it, let's just kind of deconstruct the episode based on your memory. Danger.
Oh, well, it's been a long time since I've seen that one, but I remember, and I remember specifically watching it, and when Avery Brooks took over, stepped in to be Alexander Bell, I thought, oh shit,
Gabriel Bell.
Gabriel Bell. Sorry, is he going to have to die in this? Is that going to be the end of him? And is there going to be a new commander for the station? I thought, oh my God, and that was way back before the internet. So it's not like you could jump on real quick and find out somebody posted a spoiler somewhere. Right. So yeah, it was a pretty riveting episode for me. And I love the juxtaposition, of the life of the elites versus the people that were in that district there, and really showcased the differences and sort of gave people food for thought as to what's really going on in society, I think. So, yeah, I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, Roy.
Yeah, I think it was a long time since I saw it too. Like 20 minutes ago. I had to have a refresher, but yeah, there was a little bit of the haves and have-nots, and we're only 2 years away from that time, and with the pandemic and everything, not to kind of date ourselves here, but I almost saw something like that happening where they were rounding up people, like people that weren't wanting to get the vaccine, for example, or people who were infected in other places. So I can almost see something, like that happening. And having lived through riots myself, that they can be pretty dicey. But I do love a good time travel, time paradox, changing the history story, of course. City on the Edge of Forever, one of my favorite stories from the original series. So this is kind of like that when they lose contact with Alpha Centauri and they found out it's run by the Romulans.
Correct.
Was it the Romulans now? So it kind of reminded me of that. So now Sisko has to fix the timeline just like they did in City. So I actually haven't seen an episode like this since City, really.
Okay. Yeah. So specifically this particular episode, so remember Comrades, right? So it's about, in this episode, it's about Bashir and Sisko, especially. So what we learn is that Sisko is a student of history, not necessarily a scholar, but he's a student of history, right? He pays attention to these things. Bashir admits, hey, this sounds familiar, but I don't really remember. So it allows the two characters to, like, one to be the teacher and one to be the student. In addition, Bashir, as a doctor, he gets to talk about the mental health aspect of what he's seeing.
Right.
But Bashir is very emotional about it. Like, he doesn't like what he's seeing. He wants to. He gets this visceral reaction. You see it like all the time on his face. And Sisko is, very calm. He's like, "Don't worry about it. Time will fix itself."
And we can't interfere.
Exactly. And it's all about changing the social status, right? Yeah. And we see that Danger kind of spoke to it just a moment ago. And so did you, Roy, when you were talking about the haves and the have-nots. So those who were in sanctuary district, those people were the have-nots, right? And we also learned, that some of them had mental illnesses. Yeah. And then we also saw kind of like the bourgeoisie aspect of those who had means. One woman was just like, I thought they got rid of that. Like, she was so detached from reality. She didn't know that these things were actually still in existence. Even Jadzia asked, well, why do you put walls around sanctuary district? Bernard couldn't even answer the question, right? Like, why? Like, what's the point of that? Like, really, seriously, what is the point of that? Is it really just saying you are undesirables, and because you're undesirables, we're gonna neatly tuck you right over here, and we're gonna forget about you? We're gonna forget about you, like, completely, because that's what was happening when she didn't know, she didn't understand that was still in existence. She had forgotten about them.
Yeah. So when Gabriel Bell actually interceded or stepped in to help out Bashir and Sisko, what do you think his reasoning was for stepping in and helping out, and then eventually getting himself shanked? What do you think his reason for stepping in was?
I think that he was himself a humanist, and he just he didn't like the fact that someone was being beaten, and basically I'm going to put myself in his shoes, saying, not on my watch, not if I know I can do something about it.
Right. Okay, that's kind of the way I took it too. Yeah.
I it kind of makes me wonder if that episode had come out today, would we be looking at it through different eyes? Would we be seeing the sanctuary district and the wall around that as sort of commentary on the border wall that so many people want put in, right? And
it's kind of,
and also the way we deal with mental health in this country, I would say, certainly has not improved, and it possibly gotten worse since the original episode aired back in '96. I mean, if you look at it today, I mean, all they do is cut funding for mental health care. You can see that in the escalation of gun violence. People are not getting the mental help that they need, and as a result, we're seeing an increase in gun violence. And the other thing too that you touched on, Jermaine, was the fact that these people are so disconnected from reality, and we see a lot of that today with the fake news that's going on, and people talking about the stolen election, and how can these people be living in such an alternate reality from everyone else and not focused on what's going on. So I think, had that episode come out today, we'd be looking at it in a lot different light and seeing a lot of commentary about where we are now. And go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I think it was the Reagan era that actually cut a lot of the funding for mental health. I mean, they just shut down all the facilities and said, let's just medicate people. We don't need to put them in these facilities anymore. They were trying to do some budget cuts and everything. But yeah, it was the late 80s, early 90s when they started cutting out. So this is a commentary to that, how Star Trek speaks to that.
Sure.
To that time. This is a commentary in response to that.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of cutting is still going on today. I was reading something the other day that they were talking about with the recent mass shooting that they had in Texas, how they needed to get more mental health facilities available for folks. I think the governor Abbott down there commented on that. And then people were saying, well, wait a minute, didn't you just strike so much money from the budget for mental health care?
12.1 million.
Yeah. Right. So I mean that's still going on today. We're still cutting it. We haven't learned any lessons at all since all this began during the Reagan era. So it makes me wonder if we're ever going to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
You know what? Not necessarily germane to the topic, but as I was watching this today, to kind of prep for this, I noticed the security or the police officer, whatever his role was, he was carrying basically a shotgun, and I was thinking to myself, it wouldn't be a shotgun. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't be a shotgun. Things have changed in the 20 or so years, a little bit more than 20, but things have changed so much, and yet stayed the same.
Yeah. I mean, back in '96, they probably wouldn't have imagined the how much militarization there has been of our police forces, and in the wake of 9/11, all the surplus military gear that was, instead of just being destroyed or whatever, was given to police forces. Yeah. And so you would think nothing now about seeing policemen walking around with AR-15s, right? Whereas back in '96, that whole thing hadn't happened yet. So
Right.
it's kind of interesting to see, and somewhat jarring in a way to see how much things have changed from 96 when that episode aired, thinking of what 2024 would be, and in some ways how much worse it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are at the 15-minute mark. In the past, we've done 30-minute episodes, and we did 2 segments, but we're moving to one segment that's roughly about 15 minutes. So this is actually going to end our race and discrimination discussion, and we are going to the next episode is going to be about religion. So stay tuned for that. And as always, we always bid you farewell. Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
All right.
Now, again, I'm going to say this again because we're near the end of our show. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Okay? We're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our and make it your god business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
Our experience of grief independently.
Bruh.
Yes.
I love that they're in the comments.
So much is like I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah. They should have brought that child out. It's such a good point, Will. God, that's such a good point. And he's really thought about it too. You should be here. Will, get over here.
I thought he had a girlfriend on Insta. It's been ages since I've mucked about, but
Okay, moving on. Let's move on.
yeah, we gotta move on.